Do you love playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! But only have $100 at your disposal? Well, do I have the deck for you. Cimoooooooo! What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. Now, today I'm bringing to you my $100 True King Dinosaur competitive deck. Now, this deck is a little bit of an expansion on the $30 competitive dinosaur deck video that I published a while back, and since then, that video has received over 100,000 views, so I decided to take it upon myself to see how can we best upgrade this deck for players who enjoy playing the deck, but want to kind of up their game and really take it to the next competitive level, because while that deck is okay, it is just 3 structure decks and is limited to what's inside the box. But I was actually able to comprise a complete 40 card deck and 15 card extra deck for under $100, which is absolutely insane. And a lot of you guys were really wanting an upgraded build. So without further ado, I'm gonna slide over here and we're gonna get right into it. So, how did I manage to build a competitive True King dinosaur deck for under $100? So let's go ahead and see what we're working with. A lot of these cards are gonna look the same, obviously because it is a dinosaur build. We're gonna be playing a lot of the same cards, but the cool thing is, because this deck is so cheap, it actually allows us to play some more expensive cards that you might not have thought of. And what I'm going to do is, as I'm showing off the cards here, I'm going to go ahead and also have the prices here as well, so you know roughly how much these cards are going to cost. Now, keep a couple things in mind. The first thing is, these prices are going to be going up at the time that I constructed this deck, so they are subject to a little bit of change. I don't think anything's going to jump drastically, but I just wanted to let you guys know. And the second thing is, I am using my high rarity versions of some of these cards, but I'm going to have the lowest possible near mint version of the card that's available at the time of making this video. So, you know, when you see my Ultimate Rare Max C, you're not going to be able to get an Ultimate Rare Max C for, you know, like $5. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So starting off, we've got the 3 copy of Soul Eating Oviraptor. This should be obvious because, I mean, this card is our Stratos, it's our combo enabler. I mean, this card can just do so many incredibly powerful things. We're obviously going to be maxing out on it. Now we've got Miscellaneousaurus at 3 as well. This also should come as no surprise, mainly because of the protection that Miscellaneousaurus provides to our dinosaur monsters and its ability to just special summon monsters out of the deck, meaning we can get to some of our baby dinosaurs if we need, we can get to an Oviraptor, or we can even, you know, bust out a Tyranno Infinity and just completely just OTK our opponent out of nowhere. So that's an automatic 3 of pick as well. Then continuing on, we have the baby dinosaurs. 3 baby Ceratosaurus should be an auto include just because of the fact that you want to be triggering and abusing this card as much as possible with cards like Oviraptor and a ton of other cards you're playing in the deck as well. I'm opting for only 2 copies of Petite Pteranodon, mainly because, you know, because we're not playing, you know, Dragonic Diagram in this deck because it's way too expensive, it isn't really necessary to play 3 copies of Petite Pteranodon, and because we have enough outlets here with the 3 baby Ceratosaurus, and baby Ceratosaurus is the better of the 2 because Petite Pteranodon prevents us from attacking with the monster, so arguably we have enough outlets that 2 Pteranodon will suffice. Now, moving on to the heavy hitters, of course we're going to be playing 2 copies of Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This card is just fucking insane. This is one of the greatest boss monsters a deck could ever ask for. 3,500. It's got an insane, like, several insane abilities, and the fact that it's just huge, you can drop it out of nowhere just like a BLS, it's very difficult for decks to deal with this card at times, and especially since it's searchable off of Oviraptor, which is insane. 2 is enough. I mean, you could opt for 3, but I feel like in this build, 2 is going to be all you're really looking with. Now for the 1-ofs, we're going to be playing 1 copy of Dogoron. Now Dogoron is in here because it allows us to have a searchable thing with Oviraptor that we can use to out pretty much any problematic monster in the meta. This can out a Trident, it can out a Masterpiece, really anything that you're feeling is an issue, Dogoron can out it, so that's pretty nice. We're playing 1 Drac Aolo. Now, Ironically, Drac Aolo is probably the most expensive card in this deck, coming in at around like $6 or $7, I believe. But the reasoning is because it's such a rare card to pretty much get your hands on. It only had a couple printings. And the thing about it is, it actually is very important in this deck. Having access to a level 1 tuner allows us to facilitate a myriad of different level 5 and level 9 synchro plays. So even though you are going to have to pay a little bit just for this little tiny card, it is definitely going to pay off, and I would highly recommend it. Now, rounding out the dinosaurs, we have one copy of Tyranno Infinity. As I mentioned, being able to just completely OTK our opponent out of nowhere off of a Miscellaneousaurus, or just hard drawing the Infinity and just dropping it while you have a ton of banished dinosaurs, whether it's banished off of Miscellaneousaurus or dinosaurs banished even from summoning Ultimate Conductor Tyranno Infinity is going to be really fucking big and can just pretty much end games out of nowhere. So for this deck, especially since, you know, we are playing a competitive budget variant, the one Tyranno Infinity I feel like is a very safe choice. So that's going to wrap it up for the the dinosaur component here. Now, it wouldn't be True King Dinosaurs without the True Kings, and we're going to be playing 3 copies of True King Lithosogym. This is the only True King monster that we're actually playing, and that's basically because we don't need to play Agnimazod or Barastos. This is all we really need. Agnimazod's also really expensive at like $10 a copy, so again, since this is a budget variant, we just want to focus on these. These are only a couple bucks a piece, and they enable so many different plays, not only with the dinosaurs, but also with synchro plays, as well as being able to XC into something like True King of All Calamities, which is still really easy to do in this deck with a card like Denglong. And speaking of Denglong and the Yang Zings, we're also going to be playing a small Yang Zing package in this deck as well, of 1 Suani, 1 Bion, and 1 Chiwen. Now, this is in here because the Yang Zing package allows us to facilitate some different plays that the deck typically isn't capable of producing. I mean, there's a combo where Overraptor can pretty much end with 2 negates thanks to the Yang Zing engine, and since we're not playing Diagram, and Diagram is a very important part of the True King Dinosaur deck if you're playing it at high competitive levels, we need to have ways to facilitate strong plays without having Diagram, since Diagram, 2 copies of Diagram basically costs what this entire deck is going to cost, and playing the Yang Zings is a very powerful way of doing so. It also bolsters our synchro capabilities as well, just because the whole archetype is synchro focused, and we have a lot of good synchro options in this deck as well, which are surprisingly cheap considering what we're able to do. Now, last but not least, we're going to get into the hand traps, and funny enough, with how, you know, cheap the majority of this deck is, we can actually afford to play 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and 1 copy of Max C. Ghost Ogres are coming in at about $5 a piece currently, and Max C, I believe, is about $4 to $5, I think, for the common out of the newest structure deck, so they're actually relatively cheap compared to where they've been in the past. But Ghost Ogre in this format is absolutely crazy with, you know, it just outs so many problematic cards in the meta, and Max C is just Max C. I mean, the only bad matchup you have with that is like Pure True Draco, but against Dinosaurs, against Zodiac, against a plethora of different decks, Max C is going to be your friend. And I just love that, you know, in this deck, not only do we have all the powerful Dinosaur and True King plays, but we can still afford to play these hand traps as well. So I'm really happy to be able to bring that to you guys and tell you with confidence that this is really good. So that's going to do it for the monster lineup. I believe it totals in at 26 monsters, a very heavy monster lineup. Moving into spells, 3 copies of Fossil Dig. This is obvious because, I mean, we can pretty much search anything in our deck outside of Conductor Tyranno and I believe Dogoron, but then we can just get Overraptor, which can fetch those anyway. So by extension, we want to play Themed Rhoda. Next, we have 2 copies of Forbidden Chalice. Forbidden Chalice is just a really good card that you can use to just solve a plethora of different problems. Remember, you're going to be dealing with Dridents, possibly True King of All Calamities as well, and all these other different problematic cards, and Forbidden Chalice can pretty much work and help negate some of those effects. The 400 attack boost can also come up as well if you're trying to go for an OTK, so that also is pretty nice to note as well. Now we have 2 copies of My Body as a Shield. One big weakness of of the True King Dinosaur deck, and a lot of decks for that matter, is board wipes. And My Body as a Shield allows us to shield our monsters and protect them from things like Raigeki, from Dark Hole, which is really powerful because then if we have an established board of like Calamities and Lagia or, you know, just whatever we don't want to lose, My Body allows us to protect our board from that. And it also can out things like Dryden as well if you don't need to protect yourself from the board wipe. So it's got a lot of flexibility, being a quick play spell, and I think it's a very solid option. Now we have 2 copies of Dark Hole. Raigeki is about a $25 to $30 card, so obviously that's not going to be in here, but Dark Holes are very cheap and very affordable, and essentially do the same thing, assuming you don't have any monsters on the board. But even if you have a monster on the board, say a baby dinosaur, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because Dark Hole can still trigger a baby dinosaur, get you into Overraptor, Overraptor can trigger, get you another card. So Dark Hole actually isn't a terrible call, aside from, you know, even though it could backfire and you might not be able to just, you know, blanket remove everything on your opponent's board, it's still board, it's just hard removal, and it's really powerful and can really swing a game around in your favor. And the last card is Soul Charge. Soul Charge is just insane in this deck because you can establish such a powerful board by being able to bring back things like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. You could make like a Calamities, you could make Lagia, you could make Dolka, you make all these insane boards just off of one Soul Charge if you have the life points to do so. So it's a very strong comeback card, say if you were to get board wiped, and I would highly recommend it. That's it for the spell cards. I believe the spell cards are coming in at 10 spell cards, something around that. Now last but not least, we have 2 copies of Quaking Mirror Force. I really like the Quakings, not only because they synergize with some other cards in the deck like Conductor Tyranno, but a lot of decks aren't really playing any ways to out something like Quaking Mirror Force. Regular Mirror Force can be outed by My Body as a shield, but Quaking Mirror Force cannot, and a lot of decks actually really struggle to battle phase traps. And Quaking Mirror Force can really slow down your opponent and let you regain control of the board and allow you to just go all out and win. Now, wrapping things up, we have 1 copy of Solemn Warning. Solemn Warning is just kind of the all-around, like, just know to stop a normal summon, a special summon, anything like that. Solemn Warning is a very powerful card to do so, and it's relatively cheap. Solemn Strikes are still expensive, but Warning being only a couple bucks because it's been printed so many different times, especially at the common rarity, we can afford to play the 1 copy. And last but not least, we're playing the 9 Pillars of Yang Zing because we are playing the Yang Zing package that allows us to enable the combo to have the double negate, not only with 9 Pillars, but with Herald of the Arclight, and it's just all around an extremely powerful card. Once we get it searched out of the deck, it's no longer a dead card, so we have nothing to worry about. So that's it for the main deck. Going into the extra deck, Herald of the Arclight I mentioned because we can make it rather easily, and especially with that 1 card Overraptor combo, this is a pretty much essential key piece of getting us there and making that double negate combo work. Danglong, as I already mentioned, because Danglong not only allows us to search for 9 Pillars, but its other effect allows us to make a True King of all Calamities, assuming everything works out and allows us to get us there. We've got 1 copy of Armade's Keeper of Boundaries. I really like this card because it can stop things like Zodiac Ram from triggering if you happen to run them over, as well as Whiptail. There's a lot of cool things you can negate with Armades, and being a level 5, it's rather easy to make in this deck with something like Dracaiolo and any of our level 4s. So this is a very good pick, very inexpensive pick as well. 1 copy of Black Rose Dragon because just board wipes are absolutely insane, and being able to just completely desolate an entire field and rebuild it is relatively easy with this deck, and Black Rose can help us achieve that. 1 copy of Yazi because it is a Yang Zing monster, but it is generic, and Yazi's really good because it actually has protection from targeting, which can actually be very difficult for a lot of decks to deal with. 1 copy of Boxia because Boxia is just very good all-around removal. It's a level 8, which is really easy to pretty much go into a lot of the time, and its removal effect is so powerful, and since we're playing the Yang Zings, it's just a very solid card to run. And last but not least, for the Synchro Monsters, 1 copy of Leo, Keeper of the Sacred Tree. This can be made with a Lithosa Gem and an Aeolo, and a 3100 beater that cannot be targeted is something that's actually extremely difficult for a deck like Zodiac to get over, so I'd highly recommend playing this card. as well. Now moving on to the Xyz monsters, we're playing double Logia because we have the room for it mainly, and Logia is just one of the cards that you really want to have multiples of if you can, because this is something you're going to go into, especially if you reestablish a board, you're going to want to have a second Logia if you're able to do so. One copy of Dolka because it's a lot like Logia, but it's not. I would say Logia is typically the better go-to card in most cases, but Dolka's cool because it can negate some other effects as well, and it gets 2 uses instead of just 1, so that's something to keep in mind. One copy of Dweller, because Dweller is very powerful against our True Draco and True King matchups, as well as the Mirror match, so having the Dweller in there is very useful for that. One copy of Castel, because it's very good for just all-around generic removal, and because it doesn't destroy, it's very powerful in that regard. One copy of Gagaga Samurai. So the reason Samurai is in here is because we cannot afford to put High Speedroid Chunbara in this deck. Chunbara, I believe, clocks in at around $15 to $20 currently, whereas Gagaga Samurai is about $1, if not less. So it's still easy to make because it's just 2 level 4s. Chunbara is a level 5 synchro, so arguably it's a little bit easier to make, but this is our damage output if we have the ability to OTK. Now we have one copy of Ragnazero. So Ragnazero is kind of a tech in here because it's really powerful since all these decks are playing attack and defense manipulators, things like Fire Formation Tenki, Dragonic Diagram, and all these other cards that manipulate attack and defense values. Ragnazero can allow you to capitalize on that as well as net you more advantage after destroying their monsters. So that's a very solid card and can actually be very difficult for some of these decks to deal with. And last but not least, we've got our one copy of True King of all calamities, mainly because, you know, we're not going to make it every game, but it is something that if we have the ability to do, especially off of like a soul charge, we're going to definitely want to make this beast. So guys, that is going to do it for the $100 True King Dinosaur competitive build. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this build, and if you guys have any other suggestions for, you know, any type of other budget variants or other cards that you might want to include in an upgraded version of the $30 dinosaur deck. But guys, that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video helpful, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time.